Hello, I'm Otto, and welcome back to Dyson Sphere Program. So in the last episode, we created a new blueprint for the Crystal Shell set, the last upgrade for the Implosion Cannon, that will increase our dark fog farming capabilities. It will increase the rate at which they level, so that'll get us to the max ranks faster. We then went to the dark fog farm itself and swapped over some of the collection abilities. We are now collecting Antimatter, the Antimatter fuel rods, and the Annihilation constraint spheres. So in this episode, well, really in the next couple of episodes, we're really close to beating the game. There are a few things that I would like to cover. So some of these episodes, I think we maybe have 2, maybe 3 left. We're going to try to put as much into these as we can. So one thing that I have done in between the last episode and this episode is, well, one, I have come back to Higara, our home. And I had this set up, the ray receiver, but I didn't actually have it set up to be producing anything. So I have now activated that. I've also added in a rail, where did it go? This? The EM rail ejector. So we're going to need a lot of these. I've set this to 400, so I would highly suggest doing at least that. We are going to end up setting up somewhere like pretty close to 100 per planet, and we have 3 planets that we're going to be producing these from. I have also preemptively set up the vertical launch silo, which we are not going to get into in this episode. And this episode is largely going to be focusing on the solar sails. So I have not made a blueprint for the solar sails, and we don't really need to. We have the ability to make use some of our old blueprints and adjust them so that it matches with the solar sails, but there are some things that I would like to do with that. And before we get into that, I also want to make a blueprint for both the Antimatter fuel rod and the Strange Annihilation fuel rod. So we have been collecting some of the core elements. We are collecting some of the Antimatter fuel rods from the dark fog, and then we have the ability to make some of the Antimatter fuel rods with the Antimatter and the Annihilation constraint spheres. This isn't like a long-term solution, and even though we're going to set up a full build for them, this is going to be nowhere near like active enough. But I did want to kind of make this, as both of these are going to use the same blueprint. It is going to be a 4-ingredient assembling machine blueprint. So we're going to make this from scratch. I do not have any towers. Another thing that I'm going to say is, or that I would like to say is, if you're going to be placing this blueprint, and I'm not really a fan of this type of situation, but we are going to be invading this section a little bit. So if you have a section with belts that are outputting or inputting from the back side of the ILS, I would suggest not setting these blueprints up here. So I have one that doesn't have belts coming out of the back, so I'm just going to set both of these blueprints up right here. So I'm going to make one, and then we will duplicate it and then set them both up, one for Antimatter fuel rods and one for the Strange Annihilation fuel rods. Okay, so to start, we need an ILS. We're going to have incoming. We're going to set these to max. And I'm not going to set anything up here, but just know that we're going to have Antimatter fuel rods with 4 ingredients, and then the Strange Annihilation fuel rods with 4 ingredients. We are also going to be setting this up so that we can proliferate the ingredients, and then we're going to have the space warpers coming in as well. So we need a belt that is going to be bringing in the items. So this is going to be kind of a half-size build. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then cut off the last half since we are invading half on this side. This is going to be the incoming, and this is going to be the only incoming belt. We are then going to be bringing in items. That doesn't really matter which ones you do, but we're going to set this one up for slot number 2. Same for this one here. Similar to what we did with the Strange Matter, or the miniature particle colliders. We're going to have 5 belts in the middle, so we're going to have items coming in. Oh, sorry, this one has 7, but we're going to have 5 belts that are doing something similar to this. And because we are going to be proliferating all of this, we're going to be spray coating all of this, we do want to set this up first. So this is going to be item number 3. And then mirrored over here. Whoa, I can actually do that. Wait, can I do that over here? You know what? I'm not too worried about it. And we definitely wanted to get these placed first and also place the spray coaters because this is going to limit how far back we can go. So that's going to be set up like that. And then I'm actually going to make this with the assembling machine Mark III. I'm going to take a blueprint of it with the Mark III assembling machine, but then I'm going to upgrade it to the recomposing assembler after. And again, this is like, we're just kind of future-proofing, right? Like, one thing that I like to say in my guides is we are setting up for future success. So once we get to the point where we can actually handle this thing will be ready to go and it will be supplying a lot of what we need. All right, so we're going to take this and drag it down. We can get 9, yes. And let's see, we're going to cut these off. Okay, so this is going to be mirrored on both sides. This is going to be a slightly less. Like, I think in the other builds we can get 10. This is going to be 9 wide. We need a little bit of extra space back here, and it looks like I might not need to do this at all, really. Yeah, this is going to be plenty of room. All right. At least I don't think I could. Okay. All right. Enough of that. Let's do this. So this is going to be incoming, and this is going to be outgoing. So this is going to output onto this line, and then we're going to output this one here, and then input and input. This can be mirrored all the way down. We're going to hold off on that for a bit. All right, so we have 2 more ingredients. We have number 4 coming in on this side, and number 5 coming in on this side. Let's get our spray coaters down. And that's an input. And then we're going to set up another section on both sides because we would like to kind of take up as much of the space as we can. That is number 4. And number 5. Okay, so we obviously have 4 ingredients in. So this is, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. So then this side also needs to get 2 ingredients in on the opposite side. We kind of have a little bit of a hard constraint of this. So you can see we have room for 2 more belts. And the reason why we have this kind of constraint is because we're lining things up in a way that another build would then be placed, let's say right here. And this is going to be the limiting factor on this one. It kind of splits this third little square here. So this is kind of the limits. So the way that we're going to get around that is we're actually going to loop the items that we need back around. And that will look something like this. And then you might be saying, okay, well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 ingredients coming in. How do we get these back into the ILS? Well, we are going to be doing something similar to what we've done previously.
Building destroyed.
Yeah, our ammo hasn't quite taken effect yet, and the dark fog is leveling pretty fast. So that's going to be something we're going to be losing buildings quite a bit over the next several episodes. That's something we prepared for. Like, we have a supply of signal towers going to the dark fog farm, so that is not a big deal. Anyway, so we're going to take a belt and we're going to drag this through the middle, and we're going to cross all the way over. We're going to delete the middle section, and we're going to take the belt that is going in the wrong direction and reverse path. And then we can just bring that right into our receiving belt. That is in the middle. And then this would be able to insert the sorters here and here. We're not going to add them in yet, and the reason why is because we want to be able to just pace all of this pretty fast. So we're going to go ahead and set these up first. This one also needs incoming there and incoming there. And I think that covers all of this. One of my spray coaters is in the wrong direction. Nice. And we are spray coating both the incoming and outgoing. So the outgoing line here is also going to have the spray coater. And that's going to go for both of the builds. Okay, so we need to set up this one over here. How did I have this? I had this one. Nope. And then input here and input here. And we need to wrap these belts around as well. Not that one. Not that one. Remove those. That one. Input there and input there. Okay, so now we can drag these through. So that will set up all the sorters that we need except for the ones that are going to be on this like middle section. I actually might have needed, yeah, I think I needed to leave a little bit of extra space over here. So let's, yeah, I do need an extra belt. So we are going to have to bring these out just a little bit. That is not what I wanted to do. All right. Oh, that went all the way back. Ah. Is that going to go under? Okay, we're still fine. Okay, and then I need a belt that is going to go all the way through. From here to there. Alright, and then we're going to delete the middle belts. Reverse path. And then reconnect them into the center. Why are you not reconnecting? There we go. Alright, so those are connected now, and we can add these back in. This is going to be a pain. It is what it is. That one there, and this one is fine. That one is maybe a bit easier. Okay, so then we need some sorters for these. We kind of have to do all of these manually because it's, I don't know, it would just be a little bit more of a pain to kind of try to shift some of these in. All the ones in the middle don't have to have, like, we don't have to have them on these belts. We totally could if we wanted. And I think I maybe should, you know what, let's upgrade these to the pile sorters, the ones that are outputting. Oh, that does work. Awesome. Okay, and then the same thing on the other side. That's going to be a pile sorter. And last but not least, we need some power. So we're going to start on the back side here, and that looks good there. That should cover everything. So everywhere that we can put a power tower, we are going to put a Tesla tower. Okay, and then we obviously need some proliferation, and we need some, whatchamacallit, we need some space warpers. So we're gonna bring in, let's see, let's do this here and kind of mirror on the other side, I think right there, that looks good. We're gonna give these chests and the logistics distributors request in. This one is going to be space warpers. Let's limit this first. So we need to limit this to 1 stack. Same for this one. So this is going to be space warpers coming in. And this one is going to be proliferator Mark III. If we don't have, like, I've been holding off on some upgrades. So for instance, the, oh, I did upgrade it. Okay, I didn't think that I'd done the bot distribution, but we have full coverage now, so that's going to be that. I should have... Probably should have made that one of the upper ones. Okay, and then we can add the belts in here. We're going to hit up on our up arrow key and bring this in. We want to make sure to have the proliferators in first before we start doing any kind of bringing items in. And then these space warpers can just come in and go into the back. There we go. That is our blueprint. So we are going to double this because we have 2 blueprints. So I'm going to copy this and use now and line this up the best that I can. I did not mean to get that. There we go. That's better. Okay, and then I am lining this right up there. Okay, well, I actually had a little bit more room than I thought I would. I don't know why I thought that this was going to carry over a little bit more, but you know what? It is what it is. We are good to go. All right, so then this one is going to be the antimatter fuel rods.
Mineral depleted.
Copy and paste all of these in. That is good. Is that everything? That is everything. So that's that. We also need some power over here. That is not a big deal. We're going to have one for the ILS itself. That'll cover a lot of this, and might as well just mirror it over here. Why did you not get... Wait, what? Did I miss a... This one covers those. Why does this one... Oh, I placed these in the wrong spot. Okay, well, let's put this one... Will it actually work here? Awesome. All right, well, I'm going to have to fix that on this blueprint as well. Not a big deal. I can do that shortly. Okay, so I think that covers everything. We have power, we have all that. Now we just need to bring in some items. So this is going to be antimatter fuel rods. We'll just leave this wide open. We need antimatter, we need hydrogen, we need annihilation constraint spheres, and we need the only thing that we're actually producing, well, I guess the hydrogen, titanium alloy. So we're going to add, let's do 3,000 of these maybe. We need pretty much one. We need 1 per second of each of those. These are going to have to, well, at least this one is going to have to come from the Dark Fog farm for now. This one is 1 every 12 seconds. We can definitely afford to not have too much of this. And same goes with this. We don't have any of this being provided locally except for the hydrogen, but that's okay. We can start bringing all of this in. And we actually have a decent amount of antimatter. How about that? Okay, so that'll get us some of the antimatter fuel rods. We do not have enough of this. Let's actually drop this down, see if we can get that in. All right, perfect. Let's leave this at 10%. Yeah, that's a good idea. That way we can get some of this in and some of this in a little bit sooner.
Mineral depleted.
Okay, so we need to fix the power poles on this guy. Everything is already set up. Now we just need the Strange Annihilation fuel rod.
Building destroyed.
So you can turn that off. I don't think that I've talked about this before, but you can actually... let's see, maybe one of the broadcast message? No. One of these. So we can definitely turn a lot of these off. I personally prefer to know when it's happening, so I'm not too worried about it. Anyways, let's drop this one down to 10% as well. So we need the Strange Annihilation fuel rod. That's going to need... like, none of these really matter too much, so the craft time is slow enough that it is not that big of a deal which order these are in. So we're just going to go in the order that it currently has it listed. This is the frame material. We need 1 every 4 seconds for this one. We'll do 500 of each. Tell you what, we'll do 1,000 of this one. This is the one that I'm the most excited about. So I did mention that we would be using this for personal use for now, and the reason why is because we're not going to be able to make that many. I think we might possibly be able to make 60, maybe to 150 or something, and you'll see that that's going to take us that's going to go a long way. So we're currently using the Deuteron fuel rods, and if you look down at the bottom, you can see that we have 750 megajoules of energy, and this is a fuel chamber generation, which is our kind of energy generation capabilities is 400%. This one as a base is 72 gigajoules. That is way more than what we're currently producing. You'll notice that once we get this proliferated, the fuel chamber generation is going to pretty much double. So we're going to have like 20, I think it's 2200. It might be a little bit more than 2200. I'm not completely sure, but we will find out shortly once we get some antimatter fuel rods and the core elements needed to make this. The proliferators are good. I've made sure everything is good. It looks like everything's going to be fine. Why has this did create some. Tell you what, we're going to use this and just pop that in there so we can go ahead and grab some. Wait, what? Nobody got any of that? Oh, we're bringing it in with the The sorter Mark II, or the Mark III. If we had the pile sorter, these first ones would have gobbled up everything. Okay, that is not that big of a deal. We can also... Hello? Yeah, let's make one. One? Yeah, we have one. There we go. 2,300 or 2,300% fuel generation. That is insane. So this one single item is almost enough energy to completely replace what we just have. That is not what I want. Yeah, so this is going to basically last us forever. So the increased fuel generation is also going to mean that we can travel, like warp to other systems, like in one go. So we won't really need to kind of stop in between to get to the really far, the long distance ones, because this will be generating our fuel or regenerating our fuel quite a bit faster. There we go. A few more of these are active. Yes, give it to me. Honestly, if you completely fill this up with these things, the proliferated, well, I guess the proliferation doesn't matter that much. It's still 72 gigajoules. This would probably last you the next, I don't know, maybe like 100 hours of gameplay. These things are sick. Okay, so we can now get rid of these. Let's just toss what we have in here. It's maybe a good idea to have a backup just in case. We could also use the... Where did I just go? I lost it. Here we are. We could also use the antimatter fuel rods if we wanted to, but obviously the antimatter is going to be just barely trickling in. These are just going to be trickling in. Oh yes, and the stacks to 50 as well. Okay, so real quick, I want to go ahead and place a blueprint for the solar sails. I have not created it yet, and I'm going to be using the mid-game assembling, and the reason why is because I have these set up to not bring in any ingredients. The late game assembling, I have to automatically start bringing things in, so we're just going to use one of these, let's say the circuit boards. Line that up. And then I'm going to double upgrade, not the sorters, and we're going to place the recomposing assemblers down.
A landing relay station detected.
Where is that? Oh, that's going to be a problem. I don't really have... My defenses over there aren't the best. Okay, so solar sails. We're going to leave this wide open. Solar sails need graphene and the photon combiner. Same thing, we can leave this wide open. I'm not going to activate these just yet. And I want to proliferate these too, so what am I missing? You know, if I was smart, I probably would have set this up to have like logistics to go ahead and bring these in for me. I'm guessing that whenever I... Excuse me. What was that? Whatever.
Mineral depleted.
Once I set up the blueprint for the mall up here, I probably will have it set up for the logistics distributors, so... Anyways, we are also going to be proliferating this, so I'm going to set this up for solar sails. This is 2 ingredients in, 1 ingredient out, so that's why I picked the circuit boards. We will then need to set these up, so I'm going to do that as the photon combiner. This is going to be graphene. Graphene is going to be here. Photon. And graphene. We do have some room for a proliferator. I don't have any available belts though, so I'm going to delete this. We're going to set this up. I think we can line these up here. 10. Is that going to be enough? It looks like it is. Okay, so if you were to proliferate the... Oh, what? If you were to proliferate the solar sails themselves, this would increase the speed that the EM ejectors can shoot these out. I'm not really too concerned with that. We're going to have a lot of these things. And we're going to have... Yeah, we're going to have a lot of them. Oh, is that going to be in the way? Let's go through and delete that. That should be fine.
Building destroyed.
I completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, we don't need to proliferate the outputs for these. We're going to request in. We're going to lower this to 1 stack. Proliferator. Make sure that all of these can fill up, and then we will start bringing in the items. And this build, we're probably going to need maybe 3, I think around 3 of these. So what I'll end up doing is I'll place 3 of these. Let's just make sure that this is actually going to be set up. All of these are bringing in the proliferator, so that is good. We can now bring in these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up probably 3 of these, and then after we set these up, we can take a look at the... let's use nail, but I'm going to actually place this over here. So the way that I set up a new blueprint is I'll click on the most recent ones, and then I'll copy that, and then I'll paste that into the new blueprint, and then click somewhere. That sets up a lot of the settings that I already have. And then from here, I can go 26, solar sail, replace this. I should have probably left that as the Mark III assembling machine. I'm probably going to end up making both. Like I'll have one for, whoops, I'll have one for the Mark III and then another one for late game for the recomposing assembling machine. But yeah, so I'm going to look at all that, save, and then that'll place the solar sail blueprint there. Now I have access to use that as many times as I need. I can't remember, did this take up the same amount of space? It did not. Wait, what? What? Why is it telling me that I need 11 of those? Okay, that's better. Alright, the spray coaters. Where did I put those? Thankfully I have this lovely setup that allows me to find them a little bit faster. And again, if I had the logistics set up for that, then that would be preferable, but I personally like using this for storage, so to each his own, I guess, right?
Insufficient materials. Flight mode.
Okay, we are definitely not going to be producing enough of the photon combiners for this, but that is something that we can deal with at a different time. Again, we know how to look at the production tab, so if we look at the, let's do the last 1 minute. Solar sails, we're capable of producing upwards of 11.7 thousand. The photon combiners, we now need basically 4 times what we currently have, so we would need to add in quite a few of those, and then once we add in those, we would probably need some more of the prisms, and then once we added in more of the prisms, we would need more glass, which we have on planet 2. Let's just look at everything in the star cluster. Yeah, so yeah, it's a little bit of a, yeah, we would definitely need more glass. It's a little bit of a push and pull whenever it comes to setting stuff up like that, but I would highly recommend constantly looking at your production tab. Okay, so by now we should have enough of the EM rail ejectors. I don't think that we're going to set these up just yet, but I'm going to grab 40 of them for now, just in case. Yeah, the next few episodes are probably going to be a bit longer. All right, so 400, that is going to be lots. And we are going to head to... We're actually not going to head anywhere. I think we're going to do this on this planet. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time real quick. I'm going to completely take out anything that is in this equatorial band on the southern hemisphere. Unfortunately, that means anything that I'm collecting, any oil, all of this is going to go. We're going to flatten the whole thing. And yeah, so I'm going to clean that up, and then we're going to make a build for the EM ejectors and talk a little bit about the Dyson sphere and some of that stuff. Okay, so I'll be back shortly. Okay, so I have flattened this entire outer equatorial band, and every single resource that was still here is now buried. And yeah, a lot of the power's cut off here, but that's fine. We don't need the science at the moment, and we will reconnect that shortly. Okay, so we're going to hit Control C, and we're going to find a meridian. We are largely going to be using the meridians as... Oh, we're right there. Awesome. That was not done intentionally. Okay, so I haven't really talked about, like, why do we need solar sails? Why do we need the EM ejectors? I haven't talked about a lot of that stuff. So what these solar sails are going to end up doing is the solar sails go around our star, or any star really. They have to be shot from a planet into the star system, or into space, I guess you could say, and they will start collecting energy. So the energy is then using these ray receivers. The ray receivers will collect the energy from the solar sails, and we can use that for either power generation or photon generation. If you use it for power generation, you will be acquiring a very small amount of the power that the solar sails and or Dyson sphere provide. The photon generation, however, will consume a lot more energy from the Dyson sphere and the solar sails, but it doesn't use any power on the planet, or at least not anything noticeable. So there are a few things that we can kind of do to help us out with increasing the photon generation. So the photon generation is... we should have this. So critical photon is what we would be making with the ray receivers and the solar sails and Dyson sphere Dyson sphere program. With the solar sails and the Dyson spheres, critical photons are then converted into 1 part hydrogen and 1 part antimatter. That is how we acquire the antimatter for the fuel rods, and that is how we acquire the antimatter for the white science, which is over here. So the white science needs each of the 5 sciences plus the antimatter. So this is a pivotal part of the game, or a very core part of the game. We technically don't need to shoot solar sails to beat the game. We could just use the dark fog farm, but that is going to take forever. We also technically don't need to make a Dyson sphere to beat the game. However, we are definitely going to be doing both. We're going to be shooting solar sails soon, and we are going to be creating a Dyson sphere. Probably not in this episode. This is already going to be a pretty long episode. We will probably end up making a Dyson sphere in the next one. Okay, so we have to shoot some solar sails. So I'm going to use this entire equatorial band. We're going to go right in our outer equatorial band. We're going to go right in the middle. And we're going to request in some solar sails. Again, these are not proliferated. If they were, then we probably wouldn't be able to keep up. Like, until after we beat the game. And by all means, like, if you wanted to proliferate these and you have beat the game and your belts are stacked, then that's totally up to you. So we're going to bring these in. Now, as for the EM ejectors, and really any blueprints in general, so let's get to these. We're going to be setting these up in a way that we can just drag this through. But you want to be careful, because if you take a look, as we are close to this tropic line, you can see that this is going to be centered right in the middle of each of the hardline squares. But if we were to do this on the top side, you can see that it is not lined up. So we're going to tab, 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 so that we can line these up, and then this breaks down. Yeah, so we would have to redo this. Also, we can't put any near the ILS, so we can't place one here, here, or here. That is perfectly fine. Let's start from the bottom. And we're actually just going to go through and fill this out until we get to the next meridian, which is, looks like it's right here. So same for the flip side, we can't have any here because we will be placing an ILS here. We're going to have these wrapped all the way around the planet, so we can't place any in this section here. So that means none here, here. You get the idea. All right, so let's tab, tab, tab for this row. One of the painful things about placing these EM rail ejectors is, how do you manage to get power in? How do you, like, whenever I first started playing this game, I largely did this on just the polar caps, and trying to wrap these around and get power to them and feed them with belts, it's a huge pain. But you know what? I have been claiming that this is going to be an easy to follow. Oh, come on. I have had this set up to be an easy to follow guide, and this is certainly not going to be any different. As you can see, this is pretty straightforward. It is quite easy to set this one up. As for power, power is going to be pretty easy. We're going to need a ton of the Tesla towers, so I'm actually going to go ahead and grab a few extras because I know that we're going to need some. That is over here. Let's just increase this for now. 400 is plenty. Okay, so we are aiming for, let's just follow the hardline section. So we can just click and drag. We're not going to go all the way to the top up here just yet. And it doesn't really matter how you do this as long as you just drag the power poles through. And that will look something like this. Another thing that Another thing that we could have done is we could have actually just copied and pasted all this. So also, if you hold shift, it's a little bit easier to quickly line these up, as it will try to force it onto one of the major little intersections. Okay, so we're not going to go all the way over with the power poles. We will end up probably placing one here, and I believe up here as well. This kind of lines up with our meridian, so we're going to set that up. Let me get rid of some of these so they don't get in the way of our blueprint. Alright, so let me just double check and make sure that, can we get these some power, please? Just to make sure that we have full power coverage. Looks like we do. We are good to go. Okay, so that was that, and now we have to figure out, well, how are we going to get these things some solar sails? So I'm not going to activate the solar sails just yet. I'm just going to click on this and we can add them in later. But thankfully, these will actually pass through. So we can take, now if you're using stacked belts and let's say proliferation, then you would want to use pile sorters for this, because we're going to bring, well, at least pile sorters on one side. So we're going to bring in from this direction. Now I would just do pile sorters for all of them. And then we're going to output onto this. So they will pass through. So this is totally an option. We're going to bring some solar sails down through here. And nope, that is not what I wanted.
Mineral depleted.
And then we're going to bring some solar sails in through here. All right, so after we set up the inserters, or the sorters, sorry. We're not going to completely fill this out just yet. Let's give this guy some power. Okay, so when it comes to setting up the EM rail ejectors, when you click on one of these, you'll see that there's this list of items here. And we are going to... Wait, what? What is this? I did not know this existed. I'll be completely honest. I thought that you had to have these perfectly set. Anyways, we can ignore that for now. That is a non-issue. So we are going to be copying large sections of this. So we're going to, and again, you could have filled out this whole thing like this, but we're going to be copying this and then pasting it onto the next sections. But we're going to have some settings for these. So whenever it comes to this, what this is kind of like a predetermined orbit. So we're going to hit Y. And this is going to open up our kind of like Dyson sphere, Dyson shell and Dyson swarm creator. And we're going to add in some very specific orbits. So most people don't really use the first orbit. This is just kind of, it's always there. You can't delete it as far as I know. Yeah, so we're going to add an orbit, and you have to make sure to get this right, because once you create the orbit, unfortunately, and this applies to the Dyson shell as well, once you create the orbit, it's kind of permanent. There's no way to edit it after. You would have to delete it and then redo it. So our first orbit, and this is the important part, the first orbit, we're going to have these bars on the bottom all the way to the left, so 0 degrees and 0 degrees. This, I believe, is distance in kilometers, and I'm going to have this line up with the shells that we end up making in the next episode. So this is going to be 22,400. The next one, because we can only place a shell within 1,000 kilometers, the next one would then be 21,400. And there's going to be a point where you kind of see that it's going to turn red. And the reason why is because this is actually within the orbit of our first planet, our lava planet. So the sails will only be able to go so far. But we can squeeze a few of these in here. So we can get 22,400. We can get 21,400. 2,400. 19,400, and unfortunately we cannot go to 18,400, and we can't kind of cheat and go 18,500, because then we wouldn't be able to get to like a 22,500. It would default down to 400. So we're going to start at the largest and then work our way down. So we're going to create this, and you'll notice that this kind of just shows the direction that it's going to be traveling. We're going to have one going this way. The next one that we're going to create is going to be at 21,400, and we're just going to go and have a 45 degree tilt, and then we're going to create that one. We're going to add another one and do 20400. And this one's going to go on the flip side. So this is going to be, hold on. There we go. So this is going to be 135 degrees. And then we're going to create that orbit. We're going to create another one at 19400. And this one is going to be at 90 degrees. Create orbit. And then one last one. We're going to go down somewhere between, like, inside the planet. I don't think we can do exactly 400. Okay, 14,000. That is probably fine. And we're going to turn this one up 90 degrees. And we're going to spin this one to 90 degrees as well. And create orbit. Okay, so that is now set up 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 for our orbits. And since we have 5 rows, we're just going to do... Let's do this one as 2. So the bottom row is going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this side can do 6. So that gives each of these rows a kind of orbit to launch solar sails into. And then after making sure that we have our sorters set up and all of those settings, we're going to copy this. We are going to use now. And we're just going to go through and using the power poles, I'm going to line this up. Hold Shift. Shift and Enter. And at this point it is not necessary because we didn't place any of the other belts. Alright, so let's just go ahead and set this up real quick. Hopefully real quick. And the last little bit I'm going to set up manually. We do not need this. This does not need to come out anyways. That is number 6, right? Yeah. And this one was number 2. Okay, so that is going to be our blueprint. And while the bots are creating this, we can go ahead and take a blueprint of this. We're just going to copy this, and I don't know where I'm going to put this, so for now I'm just going to call this... I don't know. I'll move it somewhere, but I just want to have it just so we can place new ones down. Alright, so we are going to go ahead and add this all the way around. You can see the top, the Tesla tower that we have right here. We can use that to kind of line this up. And we're going to place another 3 of these. That will get us all the way back around. Okay, and now we have full planet coverage of our EM rail ejectors. Alright, that was quite a lot. Nice long episode. So, in between this episode and the next episode, I'm going to be adding this to the other 2 planets as well. So I'm going to take the southern hemisphere, the outer equatorial band, and we're just going to remove anything that is there, anything that is in our way we're going to get rid of, and then we're going to place these all over the southern section of both planets. We are also going to be creating a Dyson sphere, or at least a template in the next episode, and hopefully we'll get to the rocket silos and some of those items. I do have some of those. Well, there you go, vertical launching silos. I have those here. We have not created the Dyson sphere components or the small carrier rockets, but there's some stuff that I wanted to discuss with the small carrier rockets, and That has a lot to do with the Deuteron fuel rods. That is obviously our main supply of power at the moment. So I want to have a system set up that we can kind of differentiate between what can the small carrier rockets take and what is actually designated for power. Okay, so that is going to be it for me for this episode. I will see you in the next episode, and thanks for watching.